The stars were cold and distant in the black ocean of space. Captain Minho stood on the bridge of his ship, the Taeguk, watching the view screen with calm eyes. Before him stretched a sight that would make most warriors turn back in fear. 847 alien warships blocked the path ahead. Their metal hulls gleamed under the light of distant suns. Each ship was 10 times larger than his own vessel. The aliens called themselves the Vakran. For 1,000 years they had crushed every species that stood in their way. 23 civilizations had fallen before their mighty fleets. Now they wanted the human colony world of New Sejong. The planet hung in space behind the massive blockade, a blue and green jewel that held 3 million human souls. Minho had received his orders 3 days ago. The message was simple and terrible. Earth could send only one ship. Every other vessel in the human fleet was fighting battles on a dozen different fronts. The defense force was stretched too thin. New Sejong would have to wait, or it would have to be saved by a single ship. He had not hesitated. Minho gathered his crew of 6 others and plotted a course to the blockade. Now, as he stared at the wall of enemy warships, he felt no fear, only a deep sense of purpose. Commander Jiwoo stood beside him at the tactical station. Her fingers moved across the control panel, checking weapons and shields for the 100th time. She was young for her rank, only 28, but Minho trusted her more than anyone else in the galaxy. They had served together for 5 years. She knew his mind almost as well as he did, Captain. Jiwoo said quietly. We are approaching the outer perimeter. They have detected us, Minho nodded. Open a communication channel. Standard diplomatic frequency. The view screen flickered. A face appeared, reptilian and cruel. Admiral Thorin of the Vakran Empire stared at them with golden eyes that held nothing but contempt. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship bustled with activity. Dozens of alien officers worked at their stations. A human ship, Thoran said. His voice was deep and filled with amusement. One tiny vessel comes to challenge the might of the Vakran fleet. Is this a joke? Minho kept his expression neutral. I am Captain Minho of the United Earth vessel Taeguk. I request permission to pass through your blockade to reach New Sejong. For a moment there was silence. Then Thoran began to laugh. It was a harsh barking sound. Behind him other Vakran officers joined in. The laughter spread across the communication channel, broadcast to every ship in the fleet. 847 warships heard the joke. One human ship asking for passage, you request permission? Thorin's laughter died, replaced by cold anger. You insect. You primitive creature. Do you not understand your situation? We have given humanity 72 hours to surrender New Sejong. That time is almost ended. Your people have sent one ship. One. This is not a rescue fleet. This is an insult. Minho remained calm. Nevertheless, I ask again. Will you let us pass? Thorin's face twisted with rage. You will die. Your ship will be vaporized. Your atoms will scatter across this sector as a warning to your species. Perhaps then humanity will learn to bow before their betters. The communication channel cut off. The view screen returned to the view of the blockade. Minho watched as the Vakran fleet began to move. Ships that had been holding position now activated their weapons. Energy readings spiked across the board. 847 warships prepared to fire on a single target. They are powering up all weapon systems, Jiwoo reported. Her voice was steady, but Minho could hear the tension underneath. Multiple target locks. Captain, we have about 90 seconds before they open fire. Behind them, Lieutenant Somin worked at the weapons station. Her hand shook slightly as she activated the firing controls. She was thinking of her daughter back on Earth. The girl was only 6 years old. Somin had recorded a message for her before leaving. Just in case, Ensign Taeyang sat at the engineering station. At 23, he was the youngest member of the crew. His parents had begged him not to volunteer for this mission. He had gone anyway. Some things were more important than safety. The rest of the crew held their positions across the small bridge. Dr. Hyunwoo monitored the ship's power systems. Engineer Yuna checked the integrity of the hull. Pilot Doyen kept both hands on the flight controls, ready to move at a moment's notice. They all knew what was coming. They had known from the beginning. Minho touched the communication panel on his chair. Crew of the Taeguk, this is your captain. In 60 seconds, the Vakran fleet will attempt to destroy us. You all volunteered for this mission knowing the risks. I am giving you one final chance. The escape pods are ready. Anyone who wants to leave may do so now. No one will think less of you. You have already shown more courage than most warriors show in a lifetime. He waited. The bridge was silent except for the hum of the ship's systems and the beeping of alert warnings. Outside, the Vakran fleet continued to charge their weapons. Energy built up in hundreds of cannon arrays. Soon they would fire. The combined power of 847 warships would focus on one small target. No one moved toward the escape pods. Jiwoo looked at Minho and smiled. It was a sad smile, but also proud. "We stay, Captain." All of us, Taeyang nodded from his station. "For New Sejong." Soman wiped her eyes but kept her hands on the weapons controls. "For Earth." The others echoed the sentiment. 7 people in a small ship, facing an empire's fury. Minho felt something swell in his chest. Pride. Sorrow. Determination. He turned back to the view screen and watched the Vakran fleet complete their firing sequence. Red lights blinked across 847 warships. In the darkness of space, it looked like a field of angry stars. "Jiwoo," he said quietly. "Activate the protocol." Her fingers moved across her panel. Deep in the heart of the Taeguk, systems that had been dormant now came to life. Power began to build. Energy that should not exist in normal space started to gather. The ship hummed with a new sound, something between a whisper and a scream. On the Vakran flagship, Sub-Commander Krill stared at his sensor readings with confusion. "Admiral," he said, "the human ship is showing unusual energy signatures. I have never seen readings like this before." Thorin barely glanced at the data. "It is their reactor overloading. The fools are self-destructing. Let them. It will save us the ammunition." But Krill was not convinced. Something about the readings bothered him. The energy patterns were too controlled, too purposeful. This was not a ship dying. This was a ship preparing for something. He opened his mouth to speak again, but Thoran had already given the order. "All ships," the Admiral commanded. "Fire!" 847 warships unleashed their weapons at once. The darkness of space erupted with light. Energy beams, plasma bolts, and missile swarms all converged on a single point. The spot where the human ship floated alone. On the bridge of the Taeguk, Minho gripped his chair. The view screen showed death approaching at the speed of light. "For humanity," he whispered. Then he gave the order that would change everything. Fire everything. 6 months earlier, Captain Minho had stood in a place few humans knew existed. The facility was buried deep inside Earth's moon, hidden beneath miles of rock and metal. Security checkpoints lined every corridor. Armed guards watched every entrance. This was where humanity kept its darkest secrets. Admiral Doyen walked beside him through the steel hallways. The old man's face was grim. He had been in charge of Earth's defense forces for 12 years. In that time, he had seen humanity pushed to the edge again and again. The galaxy was not kind to newcomers. Older civilizations saw humans as children playing with toys they did not understand. "What I am about to show you," Doyen said, "is classified at the highest level. Only 17 people in the entire government know about this project. After today, you will be the 18th. They stopped before a massive door. Doyen placed his hand on a scanner. A blue light swept across his palm, reading his genetic code. The door hissed open. Beyond was a hangar the size of a city block. In the center sat a ship unlike anything Minho had ever seen. It was sleek and dark, its hull made of a metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange patterns covered its surface, geometric shapes that hurt to look at for too long. "The Taeguk," Doyen said, "humanity's first and last Phantom-class destroyer." Minho walked toward the ship slowly. Something about it felt wrong. Not evil, but wrong, as if it should not exist in normal space. A woman approached them from across the hangar. She wore the white coat of a scientist and carried a data tablet. Her face was lined with exhaustion. Minho guessed she had not slept properly in months. "Captain Minho," she said, extending her hand. "I am Dr. Hyunwoo, lead scientist for the Phantom Protocol. Welcome to the project that might save humanity, or doom us all." They walked together toward the ship. Dr. Hyunwoo explained as they moved. 15 years ago, she began, a survey team discovered something on a dead planet in the outer rim. The planet had no name, only a designation, Survey 7749. The team was doing a routine mineral scan when they found structures beneath the surface, not natural formations, buildings, or what was left of them. She pulled up images on her tablet. Minho saw ruins of a city that must have been magnificent once, towers that reached toward the sky, platforms floating in the air, but everything was broken now, shattered, as if some terrible force had torn the world apart. The civilization that built that city was millions of years old, Dr. Hyunwoo continued. They were more advanced than any species in the current galaxy. They had technology we still cannot fully understand, and they left behind pieces of it in the ruins. Doyun took over the explanation. We kept the discovery secret. If the Vakran or any other empire learned what we found, they would have taken it by force. So we told no one. A small team of scientists was brought to the moon base. They spent years studying the alien technology. Most of it was too damaged to be useful, but one device was still functional. They reached the ship. A woman in an engineer's uniform joined them. She had grease on her hands and tired eyes that held a spark of fierce intelligence. Chief Engineer Yuna, she introduced herself. I helped design the systems that make this ship work. Or at least I tried to. The truth is, we still do not completely understand what we built. Yuna led them inside the Taeguk. The interior was cramped, designed for a crew of only 7. Every surface was covered with equipment and displays. At the center of the ship was a chamber sealed behind thick walls of reinforced glass. Inside the chamber sat something that made Minho's skin crawl. It was a sphere about the size of a human head, perfectly black, but the black was not a color. It was an absence, as if the sphere existed in a space where light could not enter. The dimensional fracture drive, Dr. Hyunwoo said quietly. The alien device we recovered. We have spent 15 years learning how to activate it, how to control it, how to weaponize it. Minho stared at the sphere. What does it do? It breaks reality, Yuna said simply. Space and time are not separate things. They are connected, woven together like fabric. The drive can tear that fabric, create fractures that spread through space. Anything caught in those fractures is crushed out of existence, compressed into a single point smaller than an atom. The implications hit Minho like a physical blow, a weapon that can destroy anything. Not anything, Dr. Hyunwoo corrected. Everything. When we ran the simulations, we found that the fractures spread faster than light. They can reach multiple targets simultaneously. A single activation could theoretically destroy an entire fleet. Doyun's voice was heavy. We built this ship because we had no choice. Humanity is outnumbered, outgunned. Every year we lose more colonies to alien empires. The Vakran are just the latest threat. If we want to survive, we need an advantage, something that makes the other species think twice before attacking us. Minho turned away from the sphere. But there is a cost. There's always a cost with weapons like this. Yuna nodded. The energy required to activate the drive is enormous, more power than any ship can generate safely. When the Taeguk fires its weapon, the energy will tear the ship apart. The reactor will overload. The hull will fracture. Anyone aboard will die. A suicide weapon, Minho said. Yes. Doyun met his eyes. We need a captain. Someone who understands what this mission means. Someone willing to sacrifice everything if it means protecting humanity. I have watched your career, Minho. You are the best officer I know. The most dedicated, the most willing to do what is necessary. Minho looked at the ship again. The Taeguk, named after the symbol at the center of the Korean flag. The symbol of balance and harmony. A peaceful name for a weapon of total destruction. Why tell me this now? He asked. Why not wait until you need the ship? Because we need it soon, Doyun said. Intelligence reports suggest the Vakran are planning a major offensive. They want to take New Sejong. If they succeed, it will open the way to Earth itself. We cannot let that happen. But our fleet is spread too thin. We can only spare one ship to defend the colony. The pieces fell into place in Minho's mind. One ship, the Taeguk, a weapon disguised as a rescue mission. How long do I have to decide? He asked. 3 days, Doyun replied. After that, we need to begin preparations. The ship requires a crew of 7. If you accept, you will need to recruit volunteers. People who understand they will not come back. People willing to die for humanity. Minho spent those 3 days thinking. He walked through the streets of Earth, watching people live their normal lives. Children playing in parks, couples holding hands, old people sitting on benches feeding birds. None of them knew how close they were to annihilation. None of them understood that alien fleets waited in the darkness, ready to sweep across human space. On the 3rd day, he returned to the lunar base. Admiral Doyun waited in his office. I will do it, Minho said. I will captain the Taeguk. Doyun's shoulders slumped with relief. Thank you. Do you have crew in mind? I do. Commander Jiwoo, my tactical officer. She is the best I have ever worked with. Lieutenant Soman from the Weapons Division. Ensign Taeyang from Engineering. I will need Dr. Hyunwoo and Engineer Yuna as well, since they know the ship's systems. And a pilot. I know someone from flight school who would volunteer. Over the next weeks, Minho approached each person individually. He told them the truth. He showed them the ship. He explained that accepting this mission meant certain death. And every single one of them said yes. They trained for 3 months, learning every system on the Taeguk, learning how to activate the dimensional fracture drive, learning how to aim something that could tear space itself. On their last day before launch, each crew member recorded a message. Soman spoke to her daughter, telling her to be brave and kind. Taeyang recorded words for his parents, thanking them for everything. Jiwoo left a message for her younger brother, asking him to take care of their mother. Minho recorded his message last. He sat in an empty room facing the camera, searching for words. If you are watching this, he said finally, then we have done what we needed to do. The Taeguk completed its mission. I want everyone to know that we did not go to our deaths in despair. We went with purpose, with pride. Humanity deserves to survive, to grow, to reach for the stars. If our sacrifice helps secure that future, then it was worth it. He paused, then added, do not build another ship like this. The Taeguk should be the first and last of its kind. Find another way. Be better than we had to be. The next morning, they launched from the lunar base. The Taeguk slipped away from Earth quietly, just another ship heading toward the outer rim. No one except a handful of people knew what it really was. Now 6 months later, that ship hung in space before the Vakran fleet, and everything Minho had trained for, everything his crew had prepared for, was about to become real. The bridge of the Vakran flagship was filled with confidence. Admiral Thoran sat in his command chair, watching his tactical display with satisfaction. 847 ships surrounded the single human vessel. His weapons officers had achieved perfect target locks. Every cannon, every missile launcher, every energy weapon in the fleet pointed at one tiny spot in space. The human ship, the Taeguk, hung there like a fly caught in a web. Thoran could see it on his view screen, small, insignificant, pathetic. Beside him, Sub-Commander Krill studied his sensor readings with growing concern. The energy signatures coming from the human ship made no sense. Power was building inside its hull at impossible rates. The readings suggested more energy than a ship that size could possibly generate. Admiral, Krill said hesitantly, I must report unusual readings. The human vessel shows energy levels far beyond its size. This is not consistent with a reactor overload. I believe they are activating some kind of weapon system. Thoran barely glanced at the data. Impossible. Human technology is primitive. They have nothing that could threaten even one of our ships, let alone the entire fleet. The energy spike is their reactor failing. They are about to die. But Admiral, enough. Thoran's voice was sharp. Execute the firing sequence. I want that ship reduced to atoms. Krill closed his mouth. He had served under Thoran for 20 years. He knew when the Admiral would not listen. Still, something about this situation felt wrong. The humans had sent only one ship. That made no tactical sense unless the ship was special somehow, unless it could do something the Vakran did not expect. Across the fleet, weapons charged to full power. 847 warships hummed with deadly energy. On hundreds of bridges, Vakran officers prepared to fire. They joked among themselves, taking bets on how long the human ship would survive. Most guessed less than 3 seconds. None of them noticed their sensor readings changing. None of them saw what Krill saw. The human ship was becoming something else. Inside the Taeguk, Commander Jiwoo worked at her station with focused intensity. Her fingers moved across the controls, activating systems that should not exist. Before her, displays showed numbers climbing toward critical levels. Power from the ship's reactor flowed into the dimensional fracture drive. The ancient alien device at the heart of the ship began to pulse with dark light. Drive activation at 40%, she reported. Her voice was calm despite the sweat on her forehead. Dimensional field forming. Hull integrity holding. Lieutenant. Salman sat at the weapons station, her hands hovering over the firing controls. Targeting data flooded her screens. The computer was doing something impossible. It was calculating firing solutions for 847 targets simultaneously. Every single Vakran ship was being tracked. Every single weakness in their shields was being analyzed. Targeting computer has locks on all enemy vessels, Somin said. Her voice shook slightly. Captain, the system is showing 100% accuracy on all targets. I have never seen anything like this. Ensign Taeyang monitored the engineering station. Alarms blared around him. Every warning system on the ship was screaming that something was wrong. The reactor was pushing beyond safety limits. The hull was beginning to stress. Power conduits were heating to dangerous levels. Reactor at 130% capacity, he reported. Hull stress increasing. Captain, we have maybe 3 minutes before structural failure. We only need 1 minute, Captain Minho said quietly. He sat in his command chair, watching the view screen with eyes that held no fear. Before him, the Vakran fleet prepared to fire. He could see the glow of charged weapons across 847 warships. In a few seconds, all that destructive power would focus on his ship. He touched the communication panel on his chair. All crew, this is the captain. In a moment, the enemy will fire. Our shields will not protect us, but we will not need protection. Trust in the ship, trust in each other, and trust that what we do here today will be remembered. Minho paused, then added, It has been an honor, serving with you all. Around the bridge, his crew responded. Jiwoo glanced back and nodded. Somin wiped her eyes but kept her hand steady. Taeyang smiled despite the fear in his chest. The others held their positions, ready for whatever came next. On the Vakran flagship, Admiral Thoran raised his hand. All ships on my mark. Fire in 3, 2, 1, fire. 847 warships unleashed their weapons at once. The darkness of space erupted with terrible light. Energy beams bright as stars lanced through the void. Plasma bolts that could melt mountains flew toward a single target. Missile swarms numbering in the thousands screamed through vacuum. All of it converged on the Teguk. But something impossible happened. Just as the weapons reached the human ship, it changed. The Teguk became translucent, like glass, like smoke, like a ghost. The solid metal hull seemed to exist in multiple places at once, overlapping versions of itself occupying the same space. The Vakran weapons passed through it harmlessly. Energy beams that should have vaporized the ship went through it as if firing at empty space. Plasma bolts flew past without touching anything solid. Missiles detonated against vacuum, finding no target. On the Vakran flagship, Krill stared at his sensors in horror. Admiral, the human ship is phasing through our weapons. It is moving. Between dimensions. Thoran stood from his chair, his golden eyes wide. What? That is impossible. No species has mastered dimensional technology. They have. Krill's voice rose in panic. The energy readings are off every scale. They are tearing a hole in normal space. On the bridge of the Teguk, Jiwoo watched her displays with grim satisfaction. Drive activation at 90%. Dimensional field stable. We are existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Their weapons cannot touch us. The ship shuddered. Strange sounds echoed through the hull, sounds that should not exist in normal space. The crew could feel reality bending around them. It was like falling and flying at the same time, like being in two places at once. Drive at 95%, Jiwoo continued. Dimensional fractures forming. Captain, we are ready to fire. Minho looked at his view screen. The Vakran fleet surrounded them, 847 ships arranged in a perfect killing formation. They had stopped firing now, confused by their weapons passing through empty space. He could imagine the panic on their bridges, the fear spreading through their crews. Good. Let them feel what humanity had felt. Let them know terror. Lieutenant Somin, he said, do you have firing solutions on all targets? Somin's voice was steady now. The shaking had stopped. She had a job to do, and she would do it perfectly. Yes, Captain. All 847 ships are locked. The computer has calculated dimensional trajectory for each fracture. We will hit them all simultaneously. Time to target? 4.7 seconds after firing. Minho took a breath. This was the moment. Everything they had trained for. Everything they had sacrificed for. He thought of New Sejong behind them. 3 million people who would live because of what happened in the next few seconds. He thought of Earth, far away but safe because 7 people had been willing to die. He thought of his crew, Jiwoo, who had followed him without question, Somin, who had left her daughter behind, Taeyang, barely more than a boy, facing death with courage, Dr. Hyunwoo and engineer Yuna, who had spent years preparing for this moment, Pilot Doyeon, who kept the ship steady even as reality bent around them. For humanity, Minho said quietly. Then louder, so everyone could hear, "Fire everything!" Somin pressed the firing controls. The dimensional fracture drive released its terrible power. Deep in the heart of the Taeguk, the ancient alien device tore reality apart. Fractures in space spread out from the ship like cracks in glass. But these cracks moved faster than light. They spread in all directions at once, reaching across thousands of kilometers in milliseconds. The fractures were invisible to normal sensors, but they could be felt. Every living thing in the area suddenly sensed wrongness. Reality itself was being wounded. On the Vakran flagship, Krill screamed a warning. "Dimensional fractures incoming!" "They are everywhere." Admiral Thoran saw it on his tactical display, lines spreading across space, moving impossibly fast, reaching toward every ship in his fleet at once. Evasive action. He roared. "All ships, full power to shields, get us out of here." But it was too late. The fractures moved faster than any ship could fly, faster than shields could be raised, faster than escape was possible. The first fracture reached a Vakran destroyer at the edge of the formation. The ship simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a solid warship with 300 crew members. The next moment it was gone, compressed into a point too small to see. All that remained was a tiny flash of light as its atoms were crushed together. Then another ship vanished, and another, and another. The fractures spread through the Vakran fleet like invisible death. They touched ship after ship and each one collapsed into nothing. No explosions, no debris. Just sudden absence on the Taeguk. The crew watched in silence as 847 red dots on their tactical display began to disappear. One by one, faster and faster, the enemy fleet was being erased from existence. Somin stared at her screen, tears running down her face. She had done this. Her fingers on the controls had unleashed this destruction. The dimensional fractures spread through space like death itself. They moved in absolute silence, tearing reality as they went. The Vakran fleet, which had seemed so mighty moments before, now crumbled like sandcastles before a wave. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Thorin gripped his command chair and watched his empire die. His tactical display showed ship after ship vanishing. Red indicators blinked out of existence one by one, then dozens at a time, then hundreds. The fleet he had commanded was being erased from the universe. Shield status. He roared at his crew. "Shields are useless, Admiral." An officer screamed back. "The fractures are not energy weapons. They are tearing through space-time itself. Nothing can stop them." A fracture reached one of the massive dreadnoughts near the center of the formation. The ship was 5 kilometers long, with armor thick enough to withstand nuclear weapons. Its shields could deflect asteroid impacts. It carried 10,000 warriors and enough firepower to destroy a planet. The fracture touched it, and the dreadnought compressed into a single point. 10,000 lives ended in less than a heartbeat. The ship's matter collapsed in on itself, crushed by impossible forces until it was smaller than a grain of sand. For just an instant, a tiny spark of light marked where it had been. Then even that was gone. Sub-Commander Krill worked frantically at his station trying to find any solution. His screens showed the fractures spreading in geometric patterns, each one branching and multiplying. They were designed to hit every ship at once. There was no escape route, no safe zone. The entire fleet was surrounded by wounds in reality. "Admiral," Krill said, his voice breaking, "we have 4.1 seconds before the fracture reaches our position. I am transmitting our sensor data back to the homeworld. They need to know what happened here." Thoran understood. This was not just a battle lost. This was a message, a warning. Humanity had built a weapon that could erase entire fleets in seconds. Every species in the galaxy needed to know what the humans were capable of. He opened a fleet-wide channel. Around him, the bridge was chaos. Officers shouted. Alarms wailed. But he needed to speak. This would be his last chance. All ships, he said. His voice cut through the panic. We have failed. The humans have a weapon beyond our understanding. Send all data to the Empire. Tell them. He paused, watching another dreadnought vanish from his display. Tell them we underestimated the humans. They are not prey. They are... The fracture reached his flagship. Admiral Thoran, Sub-Commander Krill, and the 1,000 warriors aboard the command ship all compressed into a single point smaller than an atom. The flagship, which had led the Vakran to victory across 23 conquered worlds, ceased to exist. 3.9 seconds had passed since the Teguk fired. The fractures continued their work. They spread through the Vakran formation with mathematical precision, finding every ship, every fighter, every escape pod. Nothing was spared. The weapon did not distinguish between warships and support vessels. It did not care about surrender or mercy. It simply erased everything it touched. On the distant world of New Sejong, 3 million colonists watched their sky. They had seen the Vakran fleet arrive 3 days ago. 847 warships blocking out the stars. They had expected to die or to be enslaved. Then sensors had detected a single human ship approaching. Hope had flickered, then died. What could one ship do against an empire's fury? Now their orbital sensors showed something impossible. The Vakran fleet was disappearing. Ship after ship vanished from the readings. The colonists stared at their displays, not understanding what they were seeing. Some thought it was a sensor malfunction. Others thought it was a trick, but it was real. In 4.7 seconds, 847 warships were reduced to nothing. The blockade that had threatened their world simply ceased to exist. On the bridge of the Teguk, the crew watched the last red dot disappear from their tactical display. The screen was empty now except for their own ship and the planet they had saved. Every enemy vessel was gone. Lieutenant Soman stared at her weapons console. The targeting computer showed successful hits on all targets. 847 ships destroyed. She thought of the crew members on those ships. The thousands of lives that had just ended because of what she had done. Her hands were shaking again. It is done, she whispered. Captain Minho nodded slowly. It is done. But the cost was not finished yet. Alarms suddenly screamed across the bridge. Ensign Taeyang looked at his engineering displays and his face went white. Captain, the reactor is going critical. The power surge from the weapon damaged the containment fields. We have maybe 60 seconds before complete failure. Commander Jiwoo checked her own station. The dimensional field is collapsing too fast. The drive is tearing the ship apart. Hull integrity at 40% and falling. Dr. Hyunwoo's voice came over the internal communications. Captain, this is engineering. The fracture drive has burned out. When it released that much energy, it destroyed itself. We are getting feedback through the power conduits. We are losing containment on all systems. Minho had expected this. They all had. The Teguk was never meant to survive firing its weapon. The ship was a suicide weapon from the beginning. But knowing it was coming did not make it easier. How long do we have? He asked quietly. Taeyang checked his readings. 30 seconds until reactor breach. The explosion will vaporize the ship. Around the bridge, the crew looked at each other. They had completed their mission. New Sejong was saved. The Vakran fleet was destroyed. Now it was time to pay the price. Jiwoo moved from her station to stand beside Minho's chair. She placed a hand on his shoulder. We did it, Captain. We saved them all. Minho covered her hand with his own. We did. Soman pulled out a small photograph from her pocket. It showed her daughter smiling at the camera, missing her front teeth. The girl was 6 years old. She would grow up now. She would have a future because of what happened here. Tell her I love her, Soman said to no one in particular. Tell her I did this so she could be safe. Taeyang closed his eyes and said a quiet prayer. He thought of his parents. They would be proud, he hoped. They would understand why he had volunteered for this mission. The ship shuddered violently. Lights flickered across the bridge. Panels sparked and died. Through the view screen, they could see strange effects outside the hull. Reality was still broken around them. The space near the Taeguk rippled and bent as the dimensional field collapsed. 15 seconds, Taeyang reported. His voice was steady now. Captain, it has been an honor. The honor was mine, Minho replied. All of you have been the finest crew a captain could ask for. He thought of his message back on Earth, the recording he had made before they left. He hoped someone would watch it. He hoped humanity would learn from what the Taeguk had done. He hoped they would choose a better path. The ship screamed around them. Metal tore. Energy conduits exploded. The reactor at the heart of the Taeguk reached critical temperature. Minho looked at his crew one last time. For humanity, he said. For humanity, they echoed. Then something unexpected happened. Commander Jiwoo felt reality twist around her. The dimensional field, which was collapsing randomly, suddenly focused on her position. She felt herself being pulled, stretched, compressed. The bridge disappeared. Her crew disappeared. There was only light and darkness and the sensation of falling through broken space. A quantum bubble formed around her, an accident of the dying dimensional drive. It sealed her away from normal space, protecting her from the reactor explosion about to consume the ship. She tried to scream, to reach for her captain, to stay with her crew. But she was already gone, torn away into an impossible pocket of reality. The reactor breached. The Taeguk exploded with the force of a small star. The ship that had saved humanity and destroyed an empire disappeared in a flash of pure white light. The explosion was beautiful in a terrible way, a sphere of energy expanding and then fading. When it was gone, there was nothing left. No debris, no wreckage, just empty space where the Taeguk had been. 6 crew members died in that instant. Captain Minho, Lieutenant Soman, Ensign Taeyang, Dr. Hyunwoo, Engineer Yuna, and Pilot Doyen. They ceased to exist. Their atoms scattered across space. Commander Jiwoo floated in her quantum bubble, unconscious and alone. The bubble drifted through broken space, protected by impossible physics. Inside it, time moved differently. To her, only seconds would pass. To the outside universe, it would be 3 weeks before she was found. On New Sejong, 3 million colonists saw the flash of light where the human ship had been. They understood what it meant. The crew that had saved them had paid with their lives. Across the galaxy, sensors detected the explosion. The Vakran homeworld received the data transmission that Sub-Commander Krill had sent in the final seconds. They saw their fleet destroyed in 4.7 seconds. They saw what humanity was capable of, and they were afraid in a secret facility on Earth's moon. Admiral Doyen stood in the empty hangar where the Taeguk had once been kept. He had just received confirmation. The mission was successful. The Vakran fleet was destroyed. New Sejong was saved. The cost was 7 lives. 7 volunteers who had known they would not return. Doyen sat down heavily, suddenly feeling every one of his 68 years. He had sent those people to die. He had ordered the construction. 3 weeks passed after the destruction of the Vakran fleet. 3 weeks that changed the galaxy forever. The Vakran Empire was the first to react. The data transmission sent by Sub-Commander Krill in his final seconds reached the homeworld within hours. The Empire's military leaders watched the recordings in horrified silence. They saw their mighty fleet erased in 4.7 seconds. They saw a weapon that could tear reality apart. They saw humanity's true power. Within a day, the Vakran sent a delegation to Earth. They offered unconditional surrender. They offered to return all territory taken from human colonies. They offered reparations and tribute. They begged for peace. The message was clear. The Vakran Empire, which had conquered 23 civilizations over 1,000 years, was terrified of humanity. Other alien species heard what happened at New Sejong. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Humanity had destroyed 847 warships with a single vessel. Humanity possessed dimensional weapons. Humanity could erase entire fleets in seconds. Within 2 weeks, 17 different civilizations sent diplomatic envoys to Earth. Some offered alliances. Some proposed trade agreements. All of them wanted non-aggression pacts. None of them wanted to be the next Vakran fleet. The Galactic Council, a loose alliance of the oldest spacefaring species, called an emergency session. For the first time in 300 years, every member attended. They gathered on the neutral station at the center of known space to discuss what they called the human question. Ambassador June represented humanity at the council. He was 50 years old with gray in his hair and tired eyes. He had been a diplomat for 20 years, always working to keep peace between humanity and the older species. Now he stood before the council and saw fear in every alien face. The council recognizes Ambassador June of the human species, the council leader announced. You may address the gathered civilizations. June stepped to the speaker's platform. Around him, hundreds of alien representatives watched. Some looked angry. Most looked afraid. A few looked calculating, already planning how to use this situation to their advantage. Honored council members, June began, I come before you in the aftermath of tragedy. 3 weeks ago, a human colony was threatened with destruction. The Vakran Empire established a blockade around New Sejong with 847 warships. They demanded we surrender the world and all its people. They gave us 72 hours. He paused, letting his words sink in. We sent one ship, the vessel Teguk, with a crew of 7 volunteers. Those 7 people saved 3 million colonists. They destroyed the Vakran fleet, and they gave their lives doing it. A Vakran representative stood. His scales were pale with fear. They used a dimensional weapon. Such technology was thought lost. No species in the current era possesses such power. How many more of these weapons do you have? The question hung in the air. Every alien in the chamber leaned forward, waiting for the answer. This was what they all wanted to know. How many more ships like the Teguk did humanity have hidden away? June met the Vakran's eyes. None. The Teguk was the only one. And humanity has destroyed all research and manufacturing capabilities related to the dimensional drive. We will build no more. Silence fell across the chamber. Then chaos erupted. Dozens of aliens stood shouting questions. Some called him a liar. Others demanded proof. A few looked relieved. The council leader called for order. It took several minutes for the chamber to quiet down. You expect us to believe you built only one? A representative from the Kelvin Union demanded. You possess the most powerful weapon in the known galaxy, and you built only one ship? Why would you do such a foolish thing? Because it was too dangerous, June replied. The dimensional drive was ancient alien technology. We studied it for 15 years. We learned how to activate it, how to control it, how to weaponize it, but we never fully understood it. The weapon tore reality apart. It killed everything in its area of effect, including the ship that fired it. He pulled out a data chip. I have the black box recording from the Teguk, recovered from the debris field 3 days ago. It shows everything that happened on the ship in its final moments. The crew knew they would die. They volunteered anyway. 7 people sacrificed themselves to save 3 million. The data was played for the council. Aliens watched in silence as the recording showed the bridge of the Teguk. They saw Captain Minho giving orders calmly. They saw the crew preparing to fire. They saw the dimensional field forming around the ship. They saw the moment the weapon was activated, and they saw the final seconds as the ship tore itself apart. When the recording ended, the chamber was silent. 7 people? Someone whispered. They knew they would die, June nodded. The Teguk was a weapon of last resort. We built it because we were desperate. Because we are surrounded by species that see us as weak. Because we needed something that would make you think twice before attacking our worlds. He looked around the chamber, meeting alien eyes. Now you know what we are capable of. Now you know what we are willing to sacrifice. A member of the oldest species in the galaxy, the Ancients, rose to speak. Counselor Vextar was over 300 years old. His people had been exploring space when most current civilizations were still primitive. He spoke with the weight of centuries. Ambassador June, Vextar said slowly, your species has done something we thought impossible. You recovered ancient technology and made it work. You built a weapon that should not exist in this era, and then after proving its power you claim to have destroyed all capability to build more. He paused. Why should we believe you? How do we know you are not hiding a fleet of these ships? June had expected this question. Because we fear this weapon as much as you do. The dimensional drive does not distinguish between friend and enemy. The fractures it creates spread through space, destroying everything they touch. If we built a fleet of such ships, if we used them regularly, we could damage reality itself. We could create permanent wounds in space-time. He gestured to the view screen showing the recording. Captain Minho left a final message. He said we should never build another ship like the Teguk. He asked humanity to find a better way. We are honoring his sacrifice by doing exactly that. Admiral Doyun, who had traveled to the council station to provide testimony, stood to speak. I authorized the Phantom Protocol. I ordered the construction of the Taguk. I sent 7 people to die. I take full responsibility for these actions. His voice was heavy with emotion, but I also authorized the destruction of all research data. The manufacturing facility on the moon has been dismantled. The scientists who worked on the project have been reassigned. We kept only the black box recording so we could prove what happened. A young diplomat from the Terran Alliance spoke up. If humanity has no more dimensional weapons, what stops other species from attacking you again? You have shown your power, but also your restraint. Some will see restraint as weakness, June smiled grimly. Then they will be making the same mistake the Vakran made. We have no dimensional weapons, but we have the knowledge of how they work. We have the example of what happened at New Sejong. If another species threatens humanity with total war, if they leave us no choice, we could build another Taguk. It would take time. It would require sacrifice, but we could do it. He let that sink in. We prefer peace. We prefer diplomacy and trade. We want to be part of the galactic community. But we will defend ourselves if we must. The Taguk was not a bluff. It was a promise. Leave us alone and we will never build such a weapon again. Force our hand, and we will do whatever is necessary to survive. The council debated for hours. Some members argued for isolating humanity, treating them as a dangerous threat. Others argued for engagement, bringing humans fully into the galactic community. A few suggested preemptive military action, though these voices were quickly silenced. In the end, the council voted. Humanity would be recognized as a full member of the galactic community. Their territorial claims would be respected. No species would be permitted to threaten human worlds without facing council sanctions. It was not everything June had hoped for, but it was peace. Fragile, uneasy peace built on fear and respect in equal measure. As the council session ended, June received a message from Earth. A search and rescue team had found something in the debris field near New Sejong. A quantum bubble floating in space. Inside it was Commander Jiwoo, unconscious but alive. She was the sole survivor of the Taguk Jiwoo, woke in a medical facility on New Sejong. For a moment she did not remember where she was. Then it all came flooding back. The bridge of the Taguk, her crew around her, the moment the dimensional field collapsed, the sensation of being torn away from her captain. A doctor entered the room. Commander Jiwoo, welcome back. You have been unconscious for 3 weeks. My crew, she said immediately. Captain Minho, Soman, Taeyang, where are they? The doctor's face fell. I am sorry, Commander. You were the only survivor. The others were killed when the ship exploded. Jiwoo closed her eyes. She had known. Deep down she had known, but hearing it confirmed still felt like a physical blow. Her captain. Her friends. The people she had served with. All gone. Why did I survive? She asked quietly. Why me and not them? The dimensional field collapsed randomly, the doctor explained.